So today I want to talk about one of what I would consider a highlight from the 2.5 years that I ran Strength of Thousands. Now there is going to be a very minor spoiler for one encounter in Strength of Thousands, but it isn't like a story heavy encounter. So even if you like plan to play it in the adventure, it's probably okay. Up to you. But just to kind of get us preface, back when we were first making our characters for the Strength of Thousand campaign, one of my players said they wanted to play a Time Mage. Time Mage is an archetype in the game, which I just made a video going over archetype feats. When I said in that video that most of the archetypes aren't very powerful because they're very flavorful options, Time Mage is the antithesis to that. Time Mage gets a lot of very powerful abilities. So much so I was kind of hesitant to let the player be a Time Mage, but they were very enthusiastic about it, so I just went with it. So we have a Time Mage wizard. What you need to know about Time Mages is that they, by just getting the dedication, they get an ability called Delay Consequence. And this is very important. So the short form version of Delay Consequence is that whenever somebody gets hit in combat, you can say that hit doesn't actually go off until a turn later. You're delaying the consequences of that. Part of the reason this is so powerful is because you can, like, if an ally gets and they're really low health, you can delay consequences and you have an extra turn to heal them up or to give them a like temporary hit points or just a turn to do something about it before they get hit, especially when they're going to get crit. And this was kind of like a funny ability that we talked about how to RP with, and it got used quite a bit. But what the players didn't know is that from the very beginning when they got the ability, I kept a record of every single time they used delay consequences. I had a little notebook going and I would talk about, like, they used delay consequences on this person against this enemy to delay this action. Now, nobody in the party except me as the GM knew that I had a record of this. And so here's a spoiler. Later on, closer to the endish of the campaign, the party fights a Ravager of Tendalos. If you don't know what that is, that's essentially just a 3-headed Hound of Tendalos. If you don't know what a Hound of Tendalos is, it's like a Lovecraftian horror that, like, jumps through time and space to hunt down people that are messing with time. We of course had a running gag throughout the entire campaign that this Time Mage was being hunted by Hounds of Tendalos. And they had to, like, spend all their downtime trying to, like, do rituals and stuff to prevent them from finding them or to ward them off, and it became a running joke. I don't think the party actually believed that they would be fighting a Ravager of Tendalos because we were doing a pre-built adventure, but it just so happened that was, in the campaign. But getting to the actual combat, what I ended up doing was 2 parts. First of all, the Ravager of Tendalos knows that this Time Mage is messing with the timeline and focuses the wizard down, which, for any, regardless you're playing D&D or 5e or Pathfinder, you don't want the wizard getting focused down. So that's kind of stressful enough. But I had an additional effect where every time the Ravager of Tendalos dealt damage to the wizard, they interrupted a past delay consequence. So what I did is I just brought out my little notebook and I just went in order and just said, when you are, when you are bit by this Hound of Tendalos, you have a vision of the past when you used delay consequences to stop your ally from being eaten. Your character reaches out and says the magic words, and they feel the pain of this bite, which interrupts the spell casting. And what essentially happens is the Hound of Tendalos is trying to correct the timeline where their ally actually got eaten by a monster and wasn't saved by the use of this time magic. The party went wild for this. They absolutely loved it. And after the fight, I was able to show them, like, here is a record I've been keeping for about 2-ish years at this point, being like, here's everything. And I'm like, I didn't expect us to get to the bottom of the list. I don't know what I would have done. But yeah, it made for this, like, really awesome moment where the party had a chance to, like, look back at their previous adventures. And I'd actually gotten to kind of use a character's theme with a encounter for the campaign. And this wasn't the final boss of, like, the end of the book or whatever, but, like, it is still made for a, like, very tense moment that I kind of subverted the player's expectations with. And this only worked because I bought the books in advance and read ahead. So I knew we had a Ravager of Tendalos. And from the beginning, when I saw that, I'm like, I have to figure out something cool to do with the Time Wizard. That just has to be a thing, right? So I thought about it and I came up with this idea for delay consequences, which the party used very frequently. Not like every combat frequently, but like every few sessions they would use it, be like, oh, an ally got crit, like delay consequences. Now we have a turn to like heal them up before they take this big chunk of damage. Or delay consequences at other effects, like if like an opponent would be grabbed as part of your attack. It's like, well, the ally wasn't actually hit by the attack yet, so they're not grabbed yet. And there's a lot of the ability is broken. It actually probably needs errated, but I digress. That's for a separate video. But yeah, I felt extremely rewarded for coming up with this ahead of time and keeping a like record throughout the entire campaign. And it was honestly one of my favorite moments from the entire campaign when I finally got to do that. Like I had like a little monologue prepared, and I had really been like so hyped for this months in advance. I'm like, we're getting close to this encounter. I'm like, I'm gonna show this off, and the party loved it too. So it worked out pretty well. If you happen to have a time wizard in your party, regardless of any campaign, like you might consider doing something with that if you want to like punish the time wizard at some point. Because that felt really good and I loved it. So that's all I got. I just wanted to share that story because that was a highlight of the campaign for me. So if you enjoyed it, consider liking and subscribing, because subscribing really means a lot to small channels I'm trying to grow, and I appreciate it. So yeah, that's it. Thanks. Have a good day.